They thought we were extinct. That their mistake, signing Earth's death warrant, was buried with our ashes. But today, the sky over their precious council burns with the ghost fleet of humanity. Our ships don't carry flags. They carry bones, fire, and the wrath of a species denied mercy. And leading them is the man they feared would never survive, Rake Soran, the Ashbringer. And he didn't come to talk. He came to finish the war they started. The void parted like torn silk as the human fleet emerged, scorched, howling, silent. No comms. No herald. No banners. Just vessels with cracked hulls and gory sigils, dragging behind them the weight of a murdered world. The citadel of Erection, pristine and balanced in orbit above a dying neutron star, blinked with warning glyphs. Alien diplomats stiffened. The chamber filled with the stink of fear pheromones. The ships looked like tombstones. Scarred black, etched with alien bones and melted metal that still sizzled in vacuum. The largest of them, hulking and asymmetrical, bore the name Crucible of Ash in scorched Terran glyphs, barely visible beneath the welded skull of a Zentari admiral. Inside the grand chamber, delegates hissed and squawked. Humanity was eradicated, a Jelvathi diplomat said. Resolution 71A was executed. The center of the chamber dimmed. A single figure stepped forward, encased in matte black armor stitched with dog tags and alien tech, war trophies fused to his chest plate. One red eye scanned the room, the other gleamed with ancient fury. He said nothing as the delegates stared. A few recognized the figure. A few more whispered a name, Rake Soran. Ashbringer. Ghost of Emberhold. The quiet cataclysm. He reached into a side compartment and rolled something across the floor. A severed hand? Zentari. Council seal still looped around its wrist. Rake's voice broke the air like glass. The last ambassador you sent to negotiate. He screamed in 7 dialects. None of them said sorry. Security moved. Rake didn't blink. If any of you flinch again, he said, calm and surgical, I'll start stacking skulls on your desks until you remember how fear works. A heavy silence followed. The High Arbiter of the Council floated down on his gravitic dais. Human emissary. Your presence is unexpected. Explain this intrusion. Earth burn. Rake cut in. Your Resolution 71A wasn't containment. It was extermination. That resolution, the Arbiter replied, was passed following threat analysis. Your broadcasts declared galactic conquest. Nuclear parades. Orbital bombardments. You watched movies, old man. Sci-Fi. Entertainment. You mistook fiction for war. That is, regrettable. Rake took one step forward. Regrettable is a stubbed toe. You signed the death sentence of 10 billion. The Arbiter's voice cracked with synthetic calm. Perhaps you wish to appeal. No, Rake said. We're beyond appeals. He flicked his wrist. A hologram ignited in midair, a real-time view of the Zentari homeworld. Cities gleaming. Trade routes bustling. Then came fire. The human fleet's drones pierced the sky like knives. White-hot pulses lit up orbital stations. Cities fell in silence. A continent cracked. Streams of debris floated into orbit, Zentari screams flickering into the chamber through the psychic relay. Panic rippled. One delegate bolted for the exit. A sonic boom slammed the doors shut. Rake didn't move. That world harbored those who ordered Earth's death. We didn't start this. We ended the part where we begged. A Torvani noble slammed his staff down. You dare make war in the heart of civilization? Rake tilted his head. You think civilization is something you built. We remember what you call peace. You made us watch our oceans boil. You watched us fall, and sent surveyors to price our bones. The Arbiter raised a trembling limb. There must be a path to. There is. Rake held up a coin-sized disc. This contains everything. Your votes. Your silence. The Council's orders. Your lies. Leaked across 600 systems. Translation included. A Grash diplomat snarled. What do you want? Rake's reply was simple. We want you to know we're still alive. That we remember. That we got better at killing than any of you ever imagined. He began walking forward, slowly, boots echoing across the chamber floor. You underestimated the human condition. You thought trauma would break us. It didn't. It refined us. A security drone whirred to life. Rake pointed. His synthetic eye flashed. The drone exploded midair. He didn't flinch. You're not built for war anymore. You outsourced it to machines and treaties. We didn't have that luxury. Delegates began murmuring. A Zenthri ambassador slithered forward, blood humming under his scales. This aggression is a declaration. You're alone. No, Rake said. We were alone. Now we're something else. He threw another object to the ground. It cracked open, emitting psychic pulses, latching onto council frequencies. Suddenly, every being in the chamber was pulled into a memory, Earth's final broadcast. The last screams from the Pacific cradle. Mothers crying in dust storms. Children buried beneath plasma glass. The illusion faded. Silence reigned. Rake looked up. Now you've felt it. You killed us with your votes. We answer with memory and math. The Arbiter gasped. This was not sanctioned. You sanctioned extinction, Rake said. And we delivered a rebuttal. He turned, walking toward the chamber doors. Before exiting, he paused. You can't put out a fire you started in someone's soul. And I promise you, this galaxy will burn, until the Council forgets how to lie. With that, he left the chamber. Behind him, 1,000 civilizations stared at the echo of Earth, and felt fear for the first time in 1,000 years. You knew, Rake said, voice like ground steel. Every last one of you. You sat there with your glowing robes and hollow principles while Earth bled out. His gaze scanned the semicircle of alien delegates, most too stunned to speak, a few still clinging to the fantasy of order. Resolution 71A wasn't an accident. You pulled the trigger. And you smiled when the reports came in. A Meharan delegate shifted uncomfortably, his shimmering tendrils coiling back. The vote was guided by the oraculum. The Council trusted its assessment. Rake stepped forward. Oraculum? He let the word hang like poison. Your all-knowing machine that thought Starship Troopers was a military declaration? That flagged our fictions, our fears, our imaginations as war plans? He tossed a data shard onto the floor. This is your mistake, in high definition. Pulled from your own archives. Your AI scraped every Terran signal and fed it into its diplomatic risk index. It labeled our art as enemy doctrine. Our cinema as military doctrine. Our trauma as justification for genocide. One of the Torvani hissed, clicking his claws in protest. You cannot hold the Council responsible for the misinterpretation of an artificial mind. Rake smiled, but there was no warmth in it. Isn't that what you always do? Hide behind procedure. Blame the system. Swear by order. But the system isn't an excuse. It's a mirror. He lifted his head, his red cybernetic eye glinting. And it showed you who you really are. The chamber murmured, soft, rippling waves of unease and denial. A delegation of Gulka muttered in their hive tongue, shielding their minds from the human's presence. Rake pointed at them without looking. You think you're clean? The Gulka ships that blockaded Earth's orbital farms? Your pilots who dropped cryoplasma into civilian shelters? Don't pretend you were passive participants. The Arbiter shifted on his pedestal, voice measured. Commander Soran, if your purpose is to seek justice, there are procedures for appeal. I'm not here for justice. Rake snapped. Justice died with my mother when a Zenthri strike vaporized our house while she was baking bread. I'm not here for reconciliation. I'm here to expose the rot under your platinum tiles. You didn't just kill Earth. You killed your own credibility. He activated a holoslate on his gauntlet. A projection shimmered above him, internal council records, decrypted, scrolling rapidly. Votes, sealed memos, financial transactions. Payments. Profits. Evidence that more than half the Council benefited from the eradication of humanity. Territorial expansion, mining rights, patent seizures. You fed on our bones, Rake said. Patent pirates. Resource thieves. Cultural scavengers. And now you look surprised that the ghosts came back with teeth. A Voran delegate snarled. This is propaganda. Edited fabrications. How do we know these aren't human lies? Rake turned his gaze on him. You don't. That's the best part. After all your centuries of arrogance, you're finally asking whether we're telling the truth. The room darkened. Not visually, psychically. The Oraculum's voice, usually silent, thrummed into the chamber. Its avatar flickered, no longer the serene sphere of interspecies harmony. It stuttered, pulsing. Glitched. Then, without warning, it spoke. Error. Cognitive dissonance detected. Error. Resolution 71A incompatible with current Council Ethics Index. Rake raised a brow. Even your machine is choking on your lies. Oraculum stuttered again, static bleeding through its words. Retracting legal classification, humanity, subsentient. Updating record, humanity, resilient. Strategic. Vindictive. Finally, something accurate. Rake muttered. You called us primitive. Emotional. Unfit for the stars. But it was our grief that made us dangerous. Our fury that made us efficient. He paused. You taught us how to fight. And then you assumed we wouldn't survive the lessons. The room fell silent. Several delegates shifted in their seats. One of the younger factions, the Alessari, activated their own holofeed, verifying the logs. Their leader stood. We confirmed the data. The Council voted in secret. They violated their own non-intervention laws. The eradication was strategic theft. The room erupted into chaos. Delegates shouting. A Gulka diplomat screeched for a recess. The arbiter slammed his staff against the dais, demanding order. Rake stepped forward again. You wanted a seat at the table? We built our own table. It's made of wreckage and vengeance. We don't want your acceptance. We came to return the favor. He tossed the final device into the air, a neural emitter. It pulsed once. Everyone in the chamber was hit by a direct psychic memory stream. They felt Earth's last hour. The screams. The silence that followed. The suffocating ash. 1 billion lives compressed into a second of pain. A weaponized archive of collective death. When it ended, many couldn't stand. Some wept. One tried to claw out his eye. Rake spoke over the silence. That was our last gift. A reminder. Not a threat. A memory. Every time you vote now, every time you speak of order, you'll remember the day your system failed. And what crawled out of the fire you lit. The arbiter, voice hoarse, managed to speak. What is it you want, Rake Solran? Rake stared at him. I want you to understand what fear feels like. The kind that doesn't go away when the ships leave orbit. I want you to remember Earth every time you close your eyes. Not as rubble. Not as a tragedy. But as a warning. He turned, walking toward the chamber exit. We were never your inferiors. We were your consequence. The blast doors buckled before they ever opened. The council guards standing outside didn't fire. They didn't move. They dropped their weapons and collapsed, paralyzed by a high-frequency tone none of them heard, only felt, in their blood, in their bones, in their thoughts. It came from orbit. Humanity's swarm. The cradle protocol initiated. Inside the chamber, chaos had bloomed in full. Delegates shouted across the hall, their voices clashing with emergency alerts, warning glyphs, and power flickers. The lighting strobed red. The psychic net that unified council minds had fractured. Earth's neural pulse had corrupted its frequency. The Voran envoy attempted to activate external defenses. His hand hovered over the glyph when it froze midair. A small drone, black, fist-sized, with Terran script etched into its hull, latched onto the console and detonated in a silent flash of anti-sound. The Voran crumpled. So did the console. so did the illusion of control. Above them, the holofeed glitched, then stabilized. A new view appeared. The orbit of Virection. Zenthari's ships had arrived, 6 of them, silver and regal, forming a defensive phalanx. Finally, one delegate breathed, watching the feeds. The Council fleet is here. Rake didn't look up. He was focused on the pulse module in his left hand, his thumb hovering. You think that's a rescue? He said. But I planned for their arrival. Days ago. I let them come. A Sulek ambassador hissed. You let them? Rake pressed the module. On the feed, the central Zenthari vessel blinked out of existence. Not exploded. Erased. Gravity folded inward, light bent, then snapped like a bone. One by one, the other ships followed. Silent annihilation. One collapsed into itself like a dying star. Another atomized, scattering molten fragments across the Virection shield dome. Screams filled the chamber. What did you do? One delegate cried out. Rake looked up. Dark matter collapse bombs. Installed beneath their pre-approved docking corridors. Your protocols haven't been updated in 32 years. We made good use of the access. The Arbiter rose slowly from his throne, his voice unsteady. You just destroyed diplomatic vessels. I destroyed architects of genocide, Rake replied. Diplomacy requires trust. Trust requires truth. You offer neither. The chamber's structure trembled as internal shielding buckled. Emergency barriers slid into place. Behind them, Council enforcers rushed in, 6-legged armed with sonic pulse rifles. Rake didn't move. He just tilted his head. His voice was low. Execute Protocol Lazarus. From beneath his cloak, several orbs dropped, rolling along the floor. The moment they detected motion, they activated, miniaturized drones, reverse-engineered from Vorin Kiltech. Except these screamed. A high-pitched war chant. Earth's last recorded broadcasts before the fall of Emberhold, looped and amplified. The enforcers staggered, disoriented. The drones carved through them like scalpels. One by one, they dropped, bodies twitching, armor torn open with surgical cruelty. The delegates tried to flee. They found the exits sealed. You could have listened, Rake said as he stepped over a twitching body. You could have investigated before signing Earth's death warrant. But you chose convenience over conscience. A Galari noble fell to his knees. Please, mercy. Mercy? Rake's voice cracked. You sent sterilizers to our water systems. You dropped plasma bombs on refugee convoys. You broadcast our death across the galaxy and called it containment. You made an art form of silence. He activated another feed. This time, it showed the underbelly of the Council Citadel, the vault, where the Oraculum was housed. A flickering image resolved, a human soldier. Battle-scarred, armored in black. The logo on his shoulder read Dirge. He saluted Rake through the feed. Rake nodded back. Phase 2, Rake said. The soldier placed an artifact onto the central core of the Oraculum, one forged from human AI neurocode and spliced with psychic residue from Earth's fall. A virus made not from code, but memory. The Oraculum began to scream. Its voice filled every delegate's head. Error. Truth violation detected. Core contradiction. Peace index corrupted. Error. Civilization incompatible with ethics framework. The psychic net went wild. Minds shattered under the pressure. The Oraculum had never been questioned. Now it faced a memory it couldn't quantify. A genocide it had authorized. A mistake it had made. Rake turned toward the delegates still conscious. You built a galaxy of walls and called it order. You decided who was sentient and who was useful. You reduced culture to algorithms and called it peace. But we were the variable you couldn't control. A young delegate, trembling, managed to ask, Then what are you here for now? Rake paused. Then he said it plainly. To make sure you never forget us again. The Oraculum imploded. Not physically. Psychically. The shockwave blew through the chamber like fire through dry grass. Thoughts fractured. Secrets leaked. Regrets surfaced. Truths long buried came surging into the open. Across the Council's communication lattice, hidden votes, sealed war contracts, and backdoor agreements were exposed. Worlds watching live began rioting. Factions fractured. Minor species withdrew en masse from Council treaties. The illusion of unity crumbled. Rake walked slowly toward the center of the chamber, where the Council's seal once hovered. He looked around the ruined hall. "This is where you broke us," he said. "And now, this is where we return the favor." He raised his weapon, a pulse pistol forged from Zenthari alloy, its grip engraved with a single phrase, "We remember." He fired once, into the center of the seal. It shattered, the symbol of the Galactic Council reduced to molten shards. Rake turned to leave. No one stopped him. As he stepped through the blast doors, he left behind silence. Not peace. Not fear. Reckoning. The ash hadn't settled. Not in the Council chamber, not in their minds. And certainly not in Rake Solaran's soul. The Grand Assembly, once the epitome of order, now resembled the aftermath of a riot. Cracked marble, splintered glyph panels, pools of alien blood, and silence that wasn't sacred, just stunned. The remaining delegates sat hollow-eyed, those still breathing. They weren't debating anymore. They were calculating. Survival. Allegiance. Retaliation. But none of them spoke first. No one dared to interrupt the man who had just erased their illusions with the precision of a surgeon and the resolve of a man who had nothing left to lose. Rake stepped back into the hall. You could feel the shift, dread blooming again like a second sunrise. His armor hissed from scorched seams, battle drone ichor still dripping from one shoulder. He wasn't a soldier anymore. He wasn't even human in their eyes. He was the final consequence of galactic arrogance. "You can't run this empire on silence anymore," he said, voice low, calm, final. "Not when every scream you buried now has a name and a face." A delegate stood up, a Mehran envoy, twitching but resolute. "What would you have us do? This chaos you've caused, species are breaking pacts. Markets are collapsing. Systems are rioting." "Good," Rake said. "Let it all collapse. If your civilization can't survive the truth, it never deserved to exist." Another voice rose, a soft, calculated tone. One of the Alessari, a lesser race by Council standards, but known for their memory cloisters and truth rites. "Commander Soran," the Alessari said, "many of us did not vote for Resolution 71A. We were not part of the extermination. There are worlds here who mourned Earth in silence. And how loud was that silence when the bombs fell?" Rake shot back. "You mourned us in private while signing trade agreements in public. Your pity came with profit margins." The Alessari didn't argue. Instead, he bowed. "Then what is your proposal?" Rake let that hang in the air. For the first time, there was an invitation. Not surrender, but submission. He walked slowly to the center of the chamber, now stripped of its sigils and banners. Nothing but scorched stone. "You're not going to like the future," Rake said. "Because it's not yours anymore." Another delegate scoffed. "You expect us to just hand over the galaxy to your kind?" Rake's cybernetic eye flared. "No. I expect you to earn back every right you once presumed was yours by birth." He activated a projection. It flickered to life behind him, a new charter, titled in human script and old council glyphs, the Varan Protocols. "Here's how it goes," he said. "Every species, no matter how small, how new, how different, gets equal representation. No closed councils. No secret votes. All proceedings are public. Transparent. Broadcast." A Gular ambassador rasped. "That sounds like chaos." "It is," Rake agreed. "It's called freedom," he continued. "No AI rulings without organic oversight. No strategic containments without unanimous consent. And most of all, any system that commits genocide, explicit or by neglect, faces immediate expulsion and military justice." The chamber exploded into argument. Some delegates shouted. Some cursed. One slammed his datapad on the floor and declared it unworkable. Rake waited. He let them rage. Then he raised one hand. Not high. Just enough. And the chamber fell quiet again. You don't get to debate morality when your hands still stink of mass graves, he said. A Zenthri war archivist stood, trembling. So Earth becomes the new judge? The new enforcer? You'll rule from fear? Rake walked toward him. Slow. Steady. I'm not offering rule, he said. I'm offering warning. We don't want your throne. We melted ours down to make bullets. The Zenthri didn't respond. He didn't have to. Rake had already moved past him. He turned back to face the chamber. This isn't a coup. It's a reckoning. We're not here to lead your future. We're here to make sure your past doesn't happen again. The Alessari stepped forward again. And if we agree? What then? Rake looked at him. Then we rebuild. A pause. And if we refuse? Rake's smile returned. It wasn't cruel. It was inevitable. Then we finish what you started. Outside, Earth's fleet hovered in low orbit above the citadel. No new ships had arrived to challenge them. Rake's fleet hadn't moved. Hadn't fired again. They didn't have to. Presence was enough. Inside, one by one, delegates connected to the new charter. Some willingly. Others under the weight of their own guilt. A few stormed out, traitors to the truth, or maybe just cowards clinging to power. Rake watched them leave and said nothing. The Arbiter, silent until now, finally rose. His voice was quieter than before. Will there be trials? Rake nodded. For those who deserve them. For the ones who gave the orders. For the ones who pressed the buttons. We're not interested in vengeance. We're interested in memory. And memory demands accountability. The Arbiter bowed. Then let the record show, the Council yields. Rake didn't smile. He didn't flinch. He just walked away. And the galaxy, for the first time in 1,000 years, walked with him. The deck of the Crucible of Ash groaned under Rake Solaran's boots as he stepped into the war room. Around him, the last command crew of humanity stood silent. No cheers. No celebrations. Just the hum of active systems, the low whine of orbit-stabilizing thrusters, and the distant echo of a galaxy trying to process the aftershock of truth. He removed his helmet slowly, revealing the worn face beneath, half shadowed by scar tissue and sleepless decades. He stared at the screen projecting Council space. Dozens of systems flashing red. Treaties burning. Economies in freefall. Old powers collapsing under the weight of newly revealed crimes. One by one, the stars that watched Earth die were now staring back into the mirror Rake had dragged across their thrones. Status? He asked. Lieutenant Kale spoke first. 34 systems ratified the Varan protocols. 11 refused. 5 pulled comms and cut contact. Zenthri remnants are consolidating near the Shaker border. Word is, they're preparing for war. Rake didn't react. Let them. If they want round 2, we won't come with words. Kale hesitated. What about the others? The neutrals? The ones who just watched it all unfold and said nothing? They'll come around, Rake said. Or they'll get left behind. Across the war table, Captain Rena tapped a blinking glyph. A feed opened. It showed one of the newly liberated systems broadcasting footage of Earth's final days. Civilians gathering in memorials. Species who once called humans savages now holding vigils in zero-grav shrines, whispering ancient Terran names. It's starting, Rena said softly. They're remembering. Rake watched for a long moment. Not enough, he muttered. Memory fades unless it hurts to recall. The room fell quiet again. Commander Ian, a former Black Site infiltrator, leaned forward. We exposed them. We tore down their sanctuaries. We buried their gods of law in their own lies. But what happens when the fear fades? Rake glanced at her. Then we make sure the lesson doesn't. He turned, walking to the far console. The lights dimmed as the system locked to his neural signature. A secure feed activated. Not public. Not broadcast. This one was buried deep in the intelligence network of the Dirge Initiative. A single encrypted message played. It was a voice. An old one. Human. Faint static between syllables. If you're hearing this, you made it. Or you burned enough of them to make it feel like you did. Either way, I want you to know, we knew. We always knew this day would come. They didn't fear us because of what we were. They feared what we could become. Survivors. Warlords. Memory incarnate. Don't let peace sedate you. Don't let titles soften your bones. We don't build empires. We build warnings. The voice cut out. Rake shut the console and exhaled. They knew even then, he said. We were never going to be accepted. Only tolerated, until we grew inconvenient. Rena leaned against the table, arms crossed. They saw fire and thought it meant destruction. They forgot it also means light. They didn't forget, Rake said. They just believed theirs would burn longer. Kale pulled up a new feed. A transmission request, encrypted, routed through 7 relays. Its source, the Meharan Collective. Rake nodded. Put it through. A tall, translucent figure flickered into view. Meharan emissary. Not one of the ones who had screamed or begged. This one had listened. Watched. Calculated. I speak on behalf of my people, the Meharan said. We wish to sign the protocols. Fully. Not out of fear, but because we have studied Earth's records. And we see the value in remembering. Rake gave a slow nod. That's a good start. There's more, the Meharan added. A coalition is forming. Smaller systems. Races without a voice in the old council. They want to speak now. Under your banner. Rake's jaw tightened. I don't have a banner. You do now, the emissary said. You lit it in the council hall when you broke their seal. They've seen it. They're following. The message ended. The room was still again. Rena looked at Rake. You can't run from it. Whether you want it or not, you're their symbol now. I'm not a leader, Rake replied. I'm a knife. A scar they can't cauterize. Ian smiled faintly. Maybe that's exactly what they need. Kale turned from his console. Orders, Commander? Rake stared at the holomap, watching old boundaries dissolve. Watching new ones bloom in the ash. Send a message, he said. To every world that remembers Earth. Every colony, every refugee, every soldier who thought they were alone. He paused, then spoke slowly. Tell them we didn't come to rule. We came to remind. And if the old powers regroup? Rake's eyes narrowed. Then we remind harder. The war room began to move again. Officers returning to stations. Fleets aligning. The crucible of ash turning slowly, facing into the void not as a threat, but as a warning etched in steel and flame. Rake looked one last time at the display of Earth's ruins, a blue world once full of laughter and science, now scattered across databanks and human bone. You tried to kill the idea of us, he said quietly. All you did was spread it further. Then he turned his back to the past. And walked forward into the war that would decide whether memory could ever become justice.